Welcome to the Predictive Playbook Basketball Show. I'm your host, John Ryan. I can be found at John Ryan Sports 1, and I'm here with my buddy and professional sports betting handicapper, Kyle Hunter, who has a website. First of all, he can be found at Kyle Hunter Picks, and his website is huntersportspicks.com. He has a ton of followers, and there's a reason why, and that's because he's good. So I always get pretty psyched up here when we have Kyle on, because I always learn not just one thing, but probably about a dozen. So welcome to the show, Kyle. I have to ask, how was the weekend? How's your week? How's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday going?
So thanks for having me back, John. Always a good time to be on here, and appreciate being on the show every time. First of all, the March Madness tournament started out really good for me. I had a really good first couple days. Lost my last couple there on Sunday and Monday. Went high volume there those first 2 days with around the 64. Did really well. Lost the last couple plays there. Hopefully get back on track here for the Sweet 16. But overall, it's been a good start of the NCAA tournament for me. What about yourself, John?
I was bruised. I was bruised, and I went 0-3 on Sunday, and I had those obvious favorites, and it's strange to me because I usually am on the dogs, but I had three favorites: Oklahoma State, of course, Illinois, and then Florida. It was just like, what was that? But in hindsight, I knew better with Florida's inconsistency from one game to the next, not just 1 month to the next. It was pretty erratic in any one game. But that's easy to say in hindsight. But I won with Gonzaga on Monday. NBA is still rolling along, so that's been a savior. But I think, and I won last night too. So I already said that for Monday. Sunday was 0-3, and then Monday won, Tuesday won. I actually had the Arizona Coyotes last night in hockey. I think they were like plus 220 on the closing money line. So I'm coming back, but even with the experience that you and I have, of more than 2 decades, you go through a couple of days and it rattles you, no matter what. And then you have to calm yourself down and just realize that, hey, this method has worked for 25 years. It's going to keep working. This was just one bad day, one bad 2-day stretch, and it happens to everybody. And you and I are pretty fortunate with the customer base we have, is that they get it. They know that there's going to be a day where we look like complete idiots and never handicapped a game in our lives, and then there's going to be days where we're better than we really are. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. I know you are too. We got the PGA Tour, which I handicap and bet. They have live in golf betting, which is cool because it's the PGA's edition of the March Madness. So they have 16 groups, 4 golfers in each, round robin. The 16 winners of those groups then go head to head. I believe starting on Friday, I think. I'm not sure the day, but it's a pretty cool tournament. So if you're interested, check it out. But we're here for hoops. And the one question, Kyle, and I'm throwing this at you. We didn't even talk about it before we went on the air here. But I've been looking at numbers using sportsreference.com to find out the depth of these teams that are remaining. So how many minutes are the starters playing in these games? How many minutes did they play in the regular season? And what I'm starting to question is, do head coaches, specifically Jay Wright, Boeheim, Altman, do they shorten the bench, or do they lengthen it when they get in these situations? And I guess it really is on a team-by-team basis. But I was just curious if you ever looked at that, or felt that it was a part of the handicap during the tournament, or if not, we can move on.
Yeah, I think that in general, I would say most coaches shorten the bench in the NCAA tournament. They want their best players on the court as much as they possibly can. Of course, it's nice to have, the extra depth in case you need it. But, if you got 6 or 7 guys that are far better than those guys that are 8th or 9th or 10th, they're going to play more than what they did during the regular season. This is one and done. You can't lose this game. So I think most coaches are that way. Having said that, I want some depth. We talked about before, was it there was one team, I think it was St. Bonaventure, that didn't play hardly anybody from the bench at all. And if you just have 5 players that play almost all of the minutes, one guy gets in foul trouble, you're in big trouble. I don't like teams like that. I think as long as you've got 7 guys or something like that that are actually pretty solid, it doesn't scare me too much this time of the year. The other thing is this time of the year, usually, and I say usually because I ran into one of these the other day, John, usually we don't catch as many of these ref shows where they just call fouls on everything. I did have Oregon State and Oklahoma State under the total. That game took about 2.5 hours, a little bit more. I think there were 55 fouls called or something. 60 free throws made in that game, 59, something like that. You can't win an under if the refs are going to call that many fouls. They shot, one team was 40% and the other team was like 27.8%, and I lost the under. So those are discouraging ones to lose. But usually you don't see as many of those, and we have seen a decent amount of games here that have not had a lot of fouls called. Usually most officials decide, hey, this is the time of the year that we don't want to call everything a foul. So I think that having an extremely deep bench could be a bit overrated this time of the year, but you don't want to just have 5 guys.
Yeah, I agree. Florida State, I think, is probably the team of the ones that I've completed that has the greatest depth. And I think you could see that in their previous game where they were just subbing pretty rapidly, or certainly more rapidly than any other team I've seen in a tournament, and it wore them down. That defense can give up 70 points, but it's the fact that the offense has to work so hard up and down the court and with different guys putting pressure on them that they may have an advantage in a matchup where a guy really is running only 6 players. So dovetailing that into the Villanova game, I'm struggling with the line because I know Gillespie's out. Everybody knows that. They probably had the 2 easiest games of anybody in the tournament to get to where they are, but they're only 6-point dogs. And granted, if it was 8, I would say that's too much. And if it was 4, I would say it's not enough. So do you think the 6 is the right number here? And as the game gets closer, do you think we'll see sharp money on one side or the other that'll push the line in one way or the other?
Yeah, this line's moving up even as we speak, John. This one, 6.5. Most people 7 now, most places. So there's been some pretty clear sharp money here on Baylor. Here's the thing. It's hard to decipher, John, because 2 rounds in a row, people have bet against Nova big. The public was against Villanova in the first 2 games, and they lost badly. Villanova's covered the spread, covered it in the first game, and then blew out North Texas. And it wasn't even a game. So is the public going to come in on Villanova because they just lost to them twice, or are they going to come in on Baylor? I think this one's a little bit hard to know exactly where it'll go from here. I do think that it probably doesn't get back to 6. I think 7 is probably more likely to be where it is. This Baylor team still has a really high upside. Baylor's a big difference from who Villanova played in these first 2 rounds. This is a big step up in class. The thing that I think I like in this game, John, is I think I like the over. Villanova's offense is very efficient, even without Gillespie. I mean, some people thought, well, when Gillespie goes out, maybe they'll start turning the ball over. They have been really good at taking care of the basketball all year. I believe they're first in turnover percentage in the country. And that has continued, even without Gillespie. Jay Wright is smart. He knows where to get the ball. I think this is a spot where if you look at it, I would think Robinson Earl will get a lot of touches here for Villanova. Really good in the post. He can also play outside. But Baylor's one weakness on defense this year has been post defense. I think Jay Wright's going to know that. I expect Wright to have all the analytics there and be paying close attention to that. I think we see a lot of touches in the post here for Villanova. You also see Robinson Earl do a little bit of the high post, low post action. And it would surprise me if Baylor can just shut down Villanova's offense. At the same time, I don't think Villanova is good enough defensively to stop Baylor either. Baylor's a very good, efficient team on offense. Both of these teams, if you look at defensive efficiency this year, have really not been very good, especially down the stretch. Baylor's defense was pretty good at the beginning of the season. At the end of the season, they weren't very good. So I like the over the best of anything in this one.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown, and you're absolutely right. The Villanova in effective field goal percentage ranks 44th in the nation at 53.5, going up against a Baylor defense with an opponent effective field goal percentage of 49%, and 49 is just not good. But Villanova's 51.2 defensively, that ranks 221st. That's not very Villanova-like in the least. And then Baylor's effective field goal percentage is third best in the nation at 57. The one thing with Baylor is, I think another weakness is they don't get to the foul line enough. And when they get into these crunch games, maybe it's not Villanova, maybe they blow them out. But next on deck, it's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. And that free throw shooting is so important to have more attempts than your opponent, and especially from the Elite Eight on. Especially if you're an underdog, because that's one of the recipes that gets you the win as an underdog. Assist to turnover, like you said, Villanova's number 2. Only Iowa was better. Iowa was 2.07. I mean, that's just an unmanageable number for a season. And you can see that by Villanova being second at 1.735. Baylor's pretty good too, 1.41, ranking 17th. But Baylor is an aggressive team on defense, and they rank 12th in opponent assist to turnover at 0.707. Now, what that means is that they're generating turnovers, they're generating steals, and I believe on the Haslam metrics, Baylor must rank very high in that category of quick points off of steals. They have to be a top 10 team, and I might be wrong, but we can look it up. But at the same time, Jay Wright's the type of coach that can look at game film and see how aggressive they are and how they're overplaying passing lanes, and possibly exploit it. And that's the wild card here. I think that's the X factor. Is Villanova going to shoot 55% from the field? If they do, I think they probably win the game, and it goes way over. It easily could be an 85 to 90 point game for both teams, I think. So I'm with you on the over.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that both teams are so good when it comes to turnovers makes it to where those wasted possessions with turnovers can be really killers if you have the over. You turn it over, a dead ball turnover, 20 seconds into the clock, it ruins you. These two teams don't do that very much, so you don't have to shoot an amazing percentage to get it over the total because you're not wasting a bunch of possessions. So I think that's pretty important to this one as well.
Even one final note, even taking in consideration that Gillespie's out, I have Villanova ranked as the 7th best team in the nation. And I double checked it because I thought, well, Gillespie data must be still in there. So that's pretty impressive considering going up against number 2 Baylor. Then you have the next game that's also 6 or 7 points. Houston, number 2 seed against Syracuse. But I have Syracuse as like the 37th best team. So there's a big difference, but you have a similar matchup. But I think Syracuse will have a more difficult time against Houston than any of their previous opponents. But I think it's great, though, that Syracuse made it this far because, as I think we said last week, Kyle, that I called them the misfit. When the whole public says, "Why did Syracuse get in?" They didn't deserve it. And then Michigan State has a play-in game, and well, that doesn't make sense either. But the committee got it right. Michigan State lost. Syracuse is in the Sweet 16, and Boeheim does this. I think every single time the consensus has been that they didn't belong. As they were the misfit. They have reached the Sweet 16 and beyond. See, again, coaching. Boeheim, Altman, Jay Wright. I would think those are probably the top 3 left. Hamilton's, doing crazy good down at Florida State there too, so that can't be overlooked. So, do you want to take a look at the Syracuse-Houston game?
Yeah, let's talk about this one for a minute because I have a couple things about this one. First of all, I have to say it's hard for me to go against Syracuse getting 6 points because Syracuse has been so good, especially as an underdog in this NCAA tournament. Boeheim has been absolute money in the bank as an underdog in the NCAA tournament. In general, in the NCAA tournament, he's been very good. So people doubt him. He does really well. I don't really want to go against him. The thing that I don't like about what Syracuse has done through these first couple games is they are shooting absolutely lights out. 50% from three-point range in their first two games. This team shot 35% from three-point range on the year. That includes those games there. So they're 35%, they're shooting 50%. Now they play a Houston team. If you look at the last few years, how Houston has been at defending the three-point line, I'm going to just read them off here real quick.
Go ahead.
We were in 2019 number 1 in the country, last year number 8, and this year number 12. So you're talking about a team that's been in the top 12 in the nation in three-point defense 3 years in a row, going against a team that has been just bombs away from three-point range, been amazing. I don't think Syracuse can keep making all their three-point shots here. Now, what I do think is Houston offensively is not an amazing team other than the fact that they get a lot of offensive rebounds. Now, that's a problem for Syracuse because they're playing that matchup zone. The major weakness of Syracuse's zone defense is giving up a lot of second chance points. Houston wants to play slow. I think Syracuse with that zone, a lot of their games end up being pretty slow. At least the opponent moves slowly. Syracuse sometimes pushes the pace. Houston very good in transition defense. Again, I'm going to say I have a lean here on the total more than anything else. And John, I haven't bet any of these games, so as we talk about these, these are ones that are pretty strong leans for me, but still have some further looking to do. I don't like firing on these right away, especially in the COVID era. We don't know when somebody might be out, so I'm not going right away into a bunch of these. But I kind of like the under in this game. I think that Syracuse is unlikely to continue to make everything. Houston wants to slow this game down. Syracuse zone usually does slow the game down just by the way they play. I think 140.5, which I see at a couple books, is a pretty high number for a game like this. I think that might be inflated a bit based on how Syracuse's games have been the last couple games. And let's be honest, playing West Virginia and playing Houston is two totally different things. West Virginia, really good offensively this year, not great defensively. I think this could be an under. As far as the side, it's hard for me, John, because I look at the matchup and I see, I think I want to lay the points with Houston because I see the offensive rebounds. But look, I've watched time and time again Syracuse do this in the NCAA tournament. If I sit there and watch this game and if I bet Houston -6 and it loses, I'm going to say, look, you watched all these NCAA tournament games and you watched them cover the spread, win outright so many times, and you still took Houston. I know the numbers would say take Houston, but I think it's hard to do. So I'm curious your opinion here, John.
Well, I think Syracuse is the play. I wish they were playing on back-to-back days so that Houston wouldn't have the time to prepare for that zone. And I don't know enough about the Boeheim zone because it's not just playing a 2-3 or a box and one. It kind of like evolves, for lack of a better word. They can give the appearance. It's almost like a Bill Belichick defense, I think. I don't want to bring in a polarizing name right now, but you know what I mean. Like you watch, their setup, and then all of a sudden it changes. And I think that's what Houston has an advantage now. They can actually look at game film and have all this time to study and prepare for it. But again, you have to execute against it. And when that zone is working well, anybody in the country, including Gonzaga, would score below their season average. But I was looking at, Boeheim's son, Buddy. And, he's started out pretty well in the beginning of the season. He's averaging, he was hitting in the 20s in 4 of the first 9 games. That led up to January 19th. And then he scored 7, 9, 17, 8, 16. And then from that point on, and that was February 9th at NC State, scored 16 and scored double digits the rest of the way. And the numbers kept getting higher and higher. You got 26 against North Carolina, 27 again at home to NC State, 31 in the conference tournament against Virginia, 30 San Diego State, 25 against West Virginia. It seems like he's in the zone. Like, you would think there's a regression that he's going to have a clunker, but it sure doesn't look like it. So I think his stepping up the way he has in such a huge way offsets Houston's ability to prepare for several days for that zone. For me, the lean is Syracuse or nothing. And again, here, I think if Syracuse is the pick, it goes over the total as opposed to not. But that's up for discussion.
That's fair. I don't think either of us have a really strong opinion on that one, but it seems I like the under better than you do. And I don't know what to do with the side. Like I said, the numbers kind of point me toward Houston, but I can't play it. I'm pretty sure I won't be betting on the side in that game.
Yeah, with a 6-point line and 140, that implies a 73-67 Houston win. And if Syracuse can get to 70 or 71, I think that increases their chances to win. Now, whether Houston is scoring 60 during that game or the hypothetical, while Syracuse is exceeding 70, I have no clue. Obviously, nobody does. But there is a pretty good system here. Play under neutral court teams where the totals between 140 and 149.5 after allowing 65 or fewer points in 3 straight games, facing an opponent that scored 75 or more in 2 straight games. So the team that we're talking about is Houston. Houston has allowed 65 or fewer 3 straight games. Syracuse has scored 75 or more in their first 2 games. So that has gone 63% over the last 25 seasons. And that's pretty good. That's a solid system. The percentage is, I know the chat room wants to hear stuff like 70, 72%. What matters to me is the p-value. And some of my friends over at Wager Talk, when I said that on that show, they encouraged me to change the name. That the p-value does not sound like anything related to sports. So maybe we'll call it the Ryan Hunter value. There you go. We can come up with all kinds of stuff, can't we?
Yeah, I guess I kind of agree that the p-value, it's easy for somebody to kind of tune that out and say, what's that have to do with sports betting? I understand what you're saying, but it is kind of that doesn't resonate with some people.
Yeah, yes. And for those that want to know, it just simply measures how the parameters work together. Are they meaningful? So one that would be terrible would be that the Philadelphia Phillies, since I'm wearing a hat, and that's not part of the system, by the way. Phillies are 10-2 on Saturday if they scored 10 runs in one of the last 5 days, and they're playing in the afternoon. That's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. I think it'd be 20-2. And I assure you that you'll probably go 10-15 over the next 25. It just has no correlation. But like the one I read off, those parameters make sense logically, and they work together, and the math proves it. So it also means that you're going to lose 37% of the time when the system wins 67% of the time.
John, I agree, and I want to say, John, that was an interesting point you brought up there, because every baseball season we see somebody saying, look, the Cubs are 6-0 on Fridays, so you have to bet the Cubs this Friday. That means nothing. It means nothing to me. It means nothing to John, I believe. This is one of those
absolutely.
where a team winning at several in a row on that same day, you're kind of implying that they don't try on the other days, and they really want to win on that day. I think that's really dangerous, slippery slope. So we don't like to go with those kind of numbers.
Like in baseball, this is more of a predictive where machine learning helps. Clayton Kershaw is ridiculously good, straight up, when his team scores 3 or more runs. Just 3 or more runs. And you're talking about an offense now that is probably the most powerful offense in the National League, or at least top 3. So you get a game where maybe just by happenstance, they're going up against the 4th or 5th starter of that opponent. Stands to reason they would score more than 3. And those are powerful situations to look for. And it's not just Kershaw. I mean, there's a lot of pitchers out there. You give them 3 runs, especially early in a game, it's pretty much over. They should probably call it after 5. But seriously, I mean, they rarely lose when they're given that many runs. But that is another thing that we'll be talking about soon, though. I'm excited about that, too, because that's not far away. And then after, I think it's March 31st, right, is the first game. So that's next week.
April 1st, everybody plays. Maybe there's some team that plays on March 31st, but I think April 1st for most teams. So that's the main opening day.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a cool thing. And I guess they're talking about having sections in the stands for people that have validated proof that they have the vaccine. So they'll be able to sit next to each other, and it'll just be, I guess, one giant section. But I'm not sure how that's all going to work, but that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. So, John, can we talk about Florida State, Michigan here briefly?
Sure. I got a little bit off track there.
No, that's fine.
No, I did.
We started talking about the p-value and what it means or something. And what the point is, everybody listening, is that some trends mean something and some don't. And John's trying to give you ones that actually mean something and are predictive in the future, rather than just looking at what's happened in the past. So. Florida State, Michigan, John, I'm curious to get your take on this game, because I'll tell you, in my brackets, I had Florida State beating Michigan in this game. And, the other day I really beat myself up over the fact that I actually took Oregon to get to the Sweet 16. And they did get to the Sweet 16, but I didn't take Oregon +5 against Iowa. I kind of talked myself out of that one because Oregon didn't have to play that first game, and I was worried that break might actually be a positive for Iowa. Iowa started fine in that game, and I think they were up by 3 or 4 with like 3 minutes till half, and then Oregon just blasted them the rest of the way. But in this one, I'm kind of saying the same thing to myself. Am I going to let myself pass up on what I thought was actually going to happen? I still think Florida State has a real chance in this game. The line is not quite as much as I was hoping it would be. I was hoping I'd be getting 4 points, or at least 3.5 points. We see 3, some shops even 2.5. I hate taking 2.5. I'd want to get the 3. But I will tell you, in this one, I think the thing about this matchup is, you talk about Florida State's depth earlier. They're also a really tall team, and Michigan is not going to have the height advantage that they usually have. Dickinson's going to be up against Koprivica, who's 7'1" as well. I think Florida State is the single tallest team in the country. This is a Florida State team that has really been good defensively in the past month. If you look at their year-to-date numbers, they're only okay on defense. In the past month, they're in the top 10 defensively. I think this Florida State defense will give Michigan trouble. The question here is Florida State going to take care of the ball well enough? Florida State has had some turnover problems, but Michigan, one thing they do on defense is they do not force turnovers. They're not aggressive at all. I think that matches up pretty well here for Florida State. In a game that I think could be decided by the last shot, I like getting the points in this game.
Yeah, I like Florida State. I like how they're playing. I like the coach. And, arguably last year, they would have been one of the teams that probably would have been a favorite to win the whole thing. He loses 2 players to the NBA lottery, and all of a sudden they're back. And those stories are pretty cool, in my opinion, that you can reload like that when you're not expected to. Like it was supposed to be a down year for Florida State, and it's not even close. But Florida State effective field goal percentage ranks 31st, 54.4. Michigan far more effective at 55.2. Now that's 1% difference, but at this level, that's actually a lot. But then we have the Florida State defense ranking 21st in opponent effective field goal percentage. Michigan is 6th at 44.5. That has a lot to do with pace, though, too. We were looking at offensive rebounding, I think you mentioned, too, because that was something I definitely agree with. And offensive rebound percentage is 13th for Florida State at 34% of all possessions. Florida State or Michigan is 27.8%, and that ranks 107th in offensive rebounding percentage. So, to your point, second chance scoring opportunities are huge in these games. Getting to the line is also huge, which is something Michigan lacks. Florida State isn't all that good, but they're 120th getting. It's a free throw attempt to field goal attempt ratio, so it's .334. So 33% of all their shots are from the free throw line, including from the field. Michigan is 202nd in the nation. Now they don't get there very often, but they make their free throws. They're 17th at 78%, and Florida State is 73rd at 74%. So there's a big edge for Michigan. I can see it. Florida State up by 7 with 5 minutes to go, and all of a sudden Michigan starts fouling. And then that is where Hamilton, I think, has, and he's got that already mapped out in his head, who's going to be on the floor. So it would be interesting to see how that goes down if Florida State has the lead late in the game. But here again, I agree with you. I'm on Florida State or nothing. They just looked too good in that last game. But that's about all I have on that one, Kyle.
Yeah, I think I would lean to the under in this one if I had to bet the total. I will say that this one has come down a bit. Sometimes this time of the year, I also go against my number. My number is not lower than the total is right now, but these neutral courts can lead to more unders than you would usually see. So you have to kind of adjust your numbers a little bit. I think both of these teams are good enough defensively. I'd hate to be betting a pretty high over. Neither of these teams are going to be as efficient as a team like a Baylor or Villanova, like we talked about earlier.
Yep. Let's see here with the time we have left. Let's go. I'm just thinking here. Well, we got to talk about Loyola for sure because we have the futures bet. That was the only good thing that happened in that Illinois game. So now we're in pretty good shape, and Loyola, we had said it. They're not a Cinderella team. They were ranked coming in. They have great coaching. They have a tremendous defensive presence, and they're not intimidated by anybody. It would be an incredible matchup if Gonzaga would play Loyola with the defense, the slow pace against Gonzaga, which is gazelle-like pace. And which one of those would win the battle of the pace of the game? But in this game, I think Loyola, this could end up being one of my best bets. I think this Loyola wins this by double digits, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was 20. I don't see Oregon State, being able to play with them. I just don't see it, and I didn't think Oregon State would, advance to this point anyway. But now they're going against a team that is a legitimate contender for the Final Four. And make no mistake about it, they are the real deal. They're not a fluke. They're not a Cinderella. They're Illinois' version of I lost my train of thought there, Kyle. I'm trying to think of a slow-paced team that's a number one seed that's left, and I don't think there are any. But that's the point.
Yeah, they're like the Virginia of a lower seed. Virginia, not a number one seed this year, but they are always really slow paced and a very good team. But I agree with you, Loyola is not that Cinderella story where, how have they gotten to this point? The committee messed up with their seed, and we knew that from the beginning. And to be honest, I wish I hadn't hedged some of my bet, John, last week. I was really worried that Illinois was going to knock them off in that game. Obviously, you were as well. It's one of those where Illinois looked so good for a long time, and the Big Ten, I know the Big Ten has looked pretty bad in this tournament, but I still think the Big Ten is a pretty good conference. You get some randomness in a season like this in a one-and-done tournament. But, Illinois had so many good athletes, and I thought maybe they'd be able to score a little bit more than Loyola was used to seeing, and Loyola's defense just totally shut them down in that one. Now, I still have, great value on this future. And I think what I'm going to do is I don't want to hedge anything here, at least before pre-flop. If it were in game and I thought it looked really bad, then I might try to hedge something because you don't want to get nothing out of it. But I really think this matchup does look pretty good for Loyola, like you said. Williamson, a guy that doesn't get enough credit for how good of a defender he is. Ask the Illinois guards how good of a defender he is. Dosunmu was MIA in that game. He's been so good.
So true.
I think Williamson grades out, according to some of the stats, as one of the top couple defenders in the entire country. I think that's going to bother Oregon State here. I don't think Oregon State's as good as they've looked these last couple of weeks. Tennessee was a team that Rick Barnes always has done really poor this time of the year. And then Oklahoma State missed a ton of wide open shots in that game. They were wide open, missing three after three. I think they went 5 for 20 or 5 for 16 or something on layups. They couldn't even put anything in right in around the hoop. And it was still a close game. I don't think they're going to get that fortunate every time. So as far as a luck factor thing, I agree with you. The only side here I could bet would be Loyola. You hate laying this many points, John, when it's this low of a total, but it definitely feels like the right side.
Yeah, I completely agree. This could be a game where Oregon State might be lucky to get to 50. And the reason I say that is Loyola is number 1 scoring defense. They're number 6 average scoring margin, number 8 assists per games allowed, number 2 total rebounds allowed. Granted, that's pace of play. Assists per field goal made, though, is not based on pace of play, and that clarifies that they rank 28th. Assists to turnover defensively, they're 10th. So they deny the ball. You're not going to have a wide open shot. It's not going to be, like you said, Oregon State allowed a lot of open looks that Oklahoma State normally drains. And 5 for 20 on layups is inexcusable. And across the board, Loyola is by far the better team at both ends of the court. Oregon State ranks 195th in opponent assist to turnover ratio, going up against the 24th best ball handling team in the nation. So I could go on and on, but it's not even close. Yeah, I would put Oregon State like 70th nationally, and going up against a team that's ranked in a game that is monumentally important. I definitely see it as a double-digit win.
Well, and the other thing is Porter Moser has not gotten enough credit for how good of a coach he is. This guy, there wouldn't be very many you'd list before him. We've said a few of the really good coaches. He's in the top 5 of the guys left, and that's for sure.
Yep.
He might be top 3 or 4. This is a really good coach. Somebody's going to probably be paying him a lot of money to go somewhere else soon, would be my guess.
You would think so. I don't know if he can. He's got Sister Jean there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. But even with the fouls, Loyola only commits 14 fouls per game. And, again, related to pace of play, but not really, because an aggressive team that plays slow can commit a lot of fouls. Just top to bottom, the more and more I look at this, the more and more I like Loyola. And then any last game you want to look here, and then I just want to hit one NBA game before we sign off.
Let's just talk about the NBA game here.
Okay. The NBA game is the Dallas Mavericks going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And, Dallas has become the playoff team that I thought they were going to be. They're playing better, but it's the defense that is making a big difference with this current rise in the standings. And I think it's very sustainable, and I definitely believe that they're going to continue to get more and more games above 500. And the system has hit 72% winners. And I'll just get my little notes over here. Let's see here. Sorry for the delay. I just want to make sure I have the right record here. All right, so what you're doing is you're playing on an away favorite that's coming off a big blowout win of 20 or more points. And it's playing an opponent that in each of the last 3 games scored more than 100 and allowed more than 100. And that system has gone 46-19 with 2 pushes for 70.8% winners without a losing season over the last 6 seasons. And it is 7-3 in the 2020 season, and it's 4-1 here in March. And it's a pretty light line considering who they're playing. Granted, it's on the road, but it's Minnesota. The Mavericks have 2 days of rest to Minnesota's 1 day of rest. That matters too. And they're 8-point favorites. So here again, I think the Mavericks easily win this game, and certainly by more than double digits, closer to a margin of 20. And I like that game quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on this one other than the fact that Minnesota plays no defense. They try to play as fast as they can. I would have liked the over. I see the over has gone up already. It's fairly high here. You got 231 or 231 and a half on this total. Even with that high of a total, I think that it goes over more often than it goes under in a game like this because Dallas is so efficient offensively. Dallas could score a huge number in this game. It wouldn't be surprising. Having said that, I'm not going to bet anything on this game, John. So good luck to you on this one. I don't like laying this many points on road favorites too often. I don't like Minnesota, so I'm not against John on this one. But I respect the system on this one, and I could see where you're coming from. That Minnesota, I mean, what do they have to play for at this point either?
A lottery pick. Yeah, that I'm not being facetious. That's they're guaranteed a lottery pick. And I missed some comments here. If you have a moment, I just want to just highlight Glenn here. He's a big followers all saying hi. And then we have Jonathan Cuthbert. Why are you talking about baseball? Oh, that's on me. That's on me, not Kyle. That was on me. I guess, our mutual friend Adam Burke is a huge baseball guy. And speaking of which, he has one of the best baseball resources, encyclopedias you can ever imagine. It averages about 3,500 words a team. He does all the teams himself. I mean, it's a true work of passion, I guess is the word. And I would highly recommend you go over and download it for free in PDF format for sure. And then he just gave me a thumbs up. That's cool. Thank you, Jonathan. And then another thing we want to make sure.
Too, right?
What's that?
I said we're going to have to talk about baseball soon. We're not going to have a choice because it's going to be here. So, yeah, but we talked a little bit of baseball here now, but it's going to be even more in the future.
So I actually had your. I wanted to give them the link to your show, but for some reason I don't have it. You want to? Oh no, I have it. I'm just going to put this up here, guys. We're going to get a image and then embed the link in the image for the next show. But at least this way, you'll have it. And it is as follows. So you won't be able to cut and paste it, I don't think. But let's see what it does.
And all it is just a YouTube channel that I created recently. I was kind of behind the times not having my own YouTube channel. And also, especially with Periscope going away here soon, I wanted to get something created. I'll be doing some YouTube live streams, things like that. John will be a part of some of those. So, you can see me and John over there some of the time coming up as well. And I'll look forward to doing some more of these shows and then John being on some of my shows as well. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel there on YouTube, I'll also drop it in the comments here when John posts this video up.
Oh, and I think if you can see that in the chat room, that's actually clickable, and that's also Kyle's channel. So it is clickable in the chat room. So just so you know. But then next week we'll have it in a nice graphic and it'll look cool and professional. But I guess that'll wrap up the show, Kyle. I really appreciate you being on here. It is going to be an interesting adjustment once Periscope goes away because that actually was where people really like to watch the videos. Not just us, so everybody. So it will be a transition, I guess, from that to YouTube, but Twitter Live is the rumor, but it's already the 24th. I think there's 7 days left in the month. So supposedly they're going to be coming up with Twitter Live that's going to be basically Periscope. So I guess that'll be it, Kyle, and I appreciate you being on the show. Why don't you take 10, 15 seconds to tell people about your service over at your website and any special deals you're offering, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, you can head over to huntersportspicks.com. You can get my premium packages there. You can also sign up for the free picks newsletter there at huntersportspicks.com. Sent over one of those free plays last weekend. I'll do the same here for the Sweet 16. It's been on a really good run here in that free pick newsletter. I believe it's 105 and 72 in the last 177. Don't quote me on that for sure. I'm just trying to go off my memory, but it's very good. It's upper 50s, almost 60%. We'll try to keep that run going, and sign up for that free picks newsletter if you haven't already. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also at Kyle Hunter Picks on Twitter if you don't already follow me there.
Very awesome. And do yourself a favor and take advantage of what he says. I just reminded myself, I had a horrible weekend, but there's one trend at Sports Memo that has me hitting 57.5% in NBA and college basketball, over 777 picks going back to 2018. And Sunday is not even noticeable because the percentage went to 57.3. So not discounting the losing days because they stink. Nobody wants them. But longer term, that's what it's all about. And once you adapt that, you're well on your way to having success in sports betting. So for Kyle Hunter and myself and the Predictive Playbook, always remember, may all the wins be yours.